The following content has been provided by RWTH Aachen University.
We get to storyboarding. This is one of the first prototyping techniques that you use once you've developed some ideas for your project. This addresses what people want to do with your system, what they want to do, what they want to achieve with it. You want to basically get a usage scenario down. A storyboard can be like a movie script. So for example, you might say somebody wants to listen to a song that they're looking for. So a storyboard is typically a sequence of single images, like a visual outline of a film, like what you know from storyboards in the movies. It's a visual representation of a script, of an action happening. It's kind of like a comic, if you like. It illustrates the interaction, and we do this for a couple of reasons. First of all, it describes the task that you are designing your system for, and it shows the user, the technology they're using, and the environment. This is important. Usually you don't exclude the environment, right? It's about the context as well. It can also, as you move on in your project, a storyboard can focus in just on the interface and just show basically a series of screenshots. But that should be happening later once you've cleared out the general idea of how is my system going to work in the context. It helps working out interaction details. It's great and a great at-a-glance overview of your interactions, and it helps developing usage scenarios and tasks and tools. When do you do storyboarding? Basically, after you describe the storyboard, after you describe the task that your system should be addressing, you can storyboard it. You can sketch it out and see whether people got the story right. I want to show you an example. This is taken from a Stanford class that I taught, where people had the assignment of basically coming up with a technology that would help people in everyday life. And being students, they came up with the concept of recognition glasses. Glasses that you wear, and they show you via AR, they recognize other people, and they show you their, I don't know, Facebook profile or something. So here's the storyboard, and the storyboard has two parts. The top part is a story without recognition glasses. The bottom is with recognition glasses. This is an important format, right? Bad interaction without the system, good interaction with the system. So here's Bob walking somewhere, and he runs into somebody. This other person says, oh, hi, Bob. But Bob has no idea who this other person is. So he's like, since he never remembers faces, he's like, so how's your wife doing? And then the other guy is like, what wife? Because he's not married. So Bob's embarrassed, and so that's not a very good situation, right? This didn't go very well. And Tim, who he just ran into, thinks that Bob's a moron because he doesn't remember that he's not even married. So here's the same thing. Bob runs into Tim. Tim says, "Hey, Bob, hi, Bob," and his awesome recognition glasses that he's wearing here, recognize Tim Brown. So. And then Tim, Bob's to Tim like, oh, okay, I know Tim Brown. He had a startup called Brown.com, and Bob's to Tim like, hey, how's your startup doing? And Bob, thereby impresses Tim, and they get off to a great start. And then Tim says, hey, great, I want to grab some lunch and talk. Okay, so let's forget for a moment whether these recognition glasses are a good idea or a bad idea, or whether they would work, or what would be technically necessary, or how many gigabytes of RAM they need. That's not important. Right now, it's important that I was able to tell you a story about a system and its effect on the interaction between two people in just these 6 pictures. And you can see these don't require high-end drawing skills, right? This is doable, right? Even by us engineers. So the point of these things is it's a simple comic with some captions, the captions capturing what's going on, the situation actually placing people into context down the street here, and showing the interaction with some bubbles, and basically rolling out what's going on. Now you might be thinking, well, but that still requires me to draw people. And I kind of stopped developing my drawing skills when I was 3. And that's fine, because we're now going to do an interactive part of this class where we wrap this up, drawing users. So for this, I would like you all to get out a piece of paper, empty piece of paper, take it sideways and get out a pen or pencil, something that you can draw with. The bigger the lines, the heavier the stroke, the broader stroke, the better. And take space, okay? So don't draw things in like 2 by 3 millimeter size. Make them big on your page so you can practice these sketches. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to draw people. And there's a saying that says, the typical engineer's drawing capabilities are like that of a 3-year-old kid if the kid has a bad day. And that's fine. If you think you can't draw, it doesn't matter, because we're going to show you how to fake drawing skills, even if you don't have any. And this is an important skill to have, because in design meetings, when you sit down with a group of people, you sometimes just need to sketch out an idea, and the graphic will be so much more helpful to communicate what you're imagining than gesturing and talking and writing down bullet points. So as I do this, I'll ask you all to continue doing this with me, right? So I want you guys to be drawing for the next, 15 minutes all the time, okay? So we'll be going through these things one by one. The first thing is we're going to draw people. So you've probably all got one person down pat, which is the famous stick man, right? We can all do that one. So start drawing stickman. But stickman isn't very convincing because it looks very childlike and it's not very developed. So I'm going to show you how to instead draw starman. And starman works like this. Please draw a star with 5. And this is we're approaching Christmas, so this is a very timely topic. Draw a star like this. Draw a couple of those. It needs to have 5 legs. That's pretty much the only requirement we have. And now I would like you to turn that into a person. So the way you do that is you say, all right, the top is going to be the head, and then I'm going to make the arms point down a little and give him a couple legs like this, and then have another arm. And so you can see that's a person. You put 2 eyes there. Looks a little like Ku Klux Klan, but apart from that, it's a person, right? And the thing about starman is, so draw a couple of these, right? You can draw them in different sizes. If you make the head really big and the body pretty small, it looks more like a kid. If you make the head smaller and make the whole person a little larger, it looks more like an adult, right? And you do that, and maybe you put 2 adults next to each other, like that, and you can put a kid in between, and there's your little happy family, right? Next thing you can do is these people can be, sad or happy. So if you want to do a happy starman, you make them, go yay up with the arms. So you draw it like this, make the arms point up. Okay, that's easy enough, right? You can do that. It's all just starman. So draw a couple of those. What starman can also do is starman can interact with things. So here's another starman that is actually pushing a button on the wall, right? Operating some magical device that we're designing. Or maybe getting some money out of an ATM, or I don't know, something like that. So that's a possibility. And if you think starman is still too complicated, you can reduce that further. You can turn it into what I call sort of Star Trek man. I know it's Star Wars, but I'm sorry, I still have to do a Star Trek reference today. So Star Trek man is basically, the Star Trek logo, right? You can all draw the Star Trek logo. So you draw the Star Trek logo, and you put a head on it. Okay? Really easy. To Star Trek logo, head on it. That's a pretty fast way to draw people. It's even faster than Starman. The disadvantage is no arms, right? So you can't really express that much with it. It just basically puts a person into a scene. But it's easy to do. You can simplify further if you have to be really quick, and I often use that actually when I'm in a meeting and I just want to sketch out a scene. You can do the simplified one that doesn't even have that second part anymore. So this is like your simplest way of showing a person. Right? And that works really well because you can say, all right, so imagine a setting, whatever, I'm making this up now. Imagine a setting where there's like a couple people who are sitting in rows in a theater, like this. And at the front is one guy, and he's giving a talk in front of, at a little podium here. And the idea is that, you want to build support for this kind of setting. And then, so you can see I can really quickly fill a scene with people in that way. Oh, you can't see it because it's in the way. I got it. I'm going to move that, so Henrik, you'll have to pan along with me here. Maybe like this. Okay. So, and I'm going to wipe this off so that we get a little more space near the top of the screen again. So keep drawing, right? While if you have nothing to do, keep drawing Starman, Star Trek Man, simple Star Trek Man, stuff like this. Next thing we're going to be doing is, what's up next? Oh yeah, we did the family already, or users around an exhibit, or like in a classroom like this. That's easy enough to do, right? So you've got a person maybe standing, for example, when we designed the personal orchestra conducting system, it was basically a screen, and in front of the screen was standing a person, and that person was waving a baton up and down that they had in their hand. And behind that person, it's important to consider that there's going to be other people, bystanders, watching that person doing what it is that they're doing in that room. So you see, like, I can set a scene with a couple people in it simply with sketching, right? So that's an important skill. That's what we use this for. There's also, if you want to get a little more fancy, you can do Architect Man. Architect Man, architects are really good at faking drawing skills as well, because they scribble, right? And scribbling is very cool. So if you want to draw a person like an Architect Man, you just do this. That's a person. Looks very fancy. So do a couple of these. And you'll actually often see these if you look at like sketches from architects about like a building and people there, they will do this. It looks incredibly fancy. It's probably easier to draw than Stickman, but it just looks fancier. You can also do business users in suits. So you basically just give them a suit that they're wearing, like this. That looks very business-like. Those kinds of things then move on to drawing body parts. And the most important kind of interaction that we draw if we zoom into something, apart from whole people, is drawing hands. And again, I guess drawing hands, you're probably currently at the level of this, where if you're lucky, you get the number of fingers right? And we can do better than that. I'm going to show you how to fake drawing hands. So what you do is you basically, the only thing you got to get right, and it's not even that important, it's roughly counting to 5 on this. So let's say you want to draw a hand that is reaching out to something, for example, pushing a button. So you can do it like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So that's a hand pushing a button. And those are fairly easy to do. You can even simplify it. You can just say there's going to be just this one finger there, and then the rest is basically just this hand, right? That's fine too. You can maybe put some lines in here to show that that's the rest of the hand. See, and that almost looks like stylish, right? So even though you don't need any reasonable drawing skills for that. What's much harder, of course, is drawing things that grab things or that touch things. So that's where it gets a little trickier. But using that technique makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm not a great drawer myself, right? So I totally admit that. So what I encourage you to take a look at, how long is the video that Bill has? About 10 minutes? Yes. OK, great. I think, can we maybe roll this here? That would be perfect. Going to go out of the presentation mode. Wi-Fi. Or is it up on there? Oh, is it? Oh, even better. What's that?
Speaking about 30 seconds and projecting.
Right, exactly. All right, here we go. So this is a video. I should explain what this is about. Hold on. I'll just stop this real quick. what this is about is Bill Verplank was one of the original designers of the STAR user interface. So you remember the STAR user interface that we talked about. So he's been around a long time, and he worked at Park when the STAR was designed. He was one of the people who designed these icons and went through users to discover this graphical language. So he's somewhat of a hero of HCI. And I've met Bill years ago at Stanford when we were teaching this class on HCI design together. And I managed to get him over here to Aachen, and he visited us a couple years ago, I think in 2010, and gave a talk on sketching. And he's basically one of the people who've really, sort of publicized this like Starman, this whole design shape. So I'll give you his spin on this whole thing, and you'll get an idea of how a professional teaches this. But he's also, while he's very good at sketching himself, when you sit down in a meeting with him, you'll have a bunch of notes, and he'll have a bunch of pictures. It's really amazing. But he's really able to teach this to people who don't know drawing very well. So let's look at this one first.
Quickly, just with a blob, I call it. I'm still working on these.
This content was provided by RWTH Aachen University.